It is because understanding the fabric of North Korea is very important to understanding their capabilities. Although North Korea is reported to have 1.2 million men under arms, in reality, the entire country is a military camp. So among the 21 million North Koreans, most likely 6 to 10 million of them are fighters that can fight. They can shoot an AK, they can launch an RPG, they can pitch a tent, and they can fight very well. So that is the basic challenge that we have. So how do they do this? For one thing, North Korea, the leadership regime, has a very big advantage in that it has longevity. It's been around for 80 years. Since 1945, the Kim family has been ruling North Korea, and they've been very, very efficient. Now, if you look at Kim Jong-un, who is the leader right now, he's about 40 years old. His grandfather died at 82. His father died at 69. So if you look at the statistics, he's going to live for another 30 years. Easy. That means that regime, unless something catastrophic happens, will be around for the next 30 years. That will be 100 years of the Kim family. So the number one strength that that society has is that it is able to have a long-standing, I did that on purpose. Yeah, I'm not too tall, so, okay. So that's the first advantage that the North Korean society has. Secondly, North Korea is very talented at controlling information. Very talented. Every dictator in the world will envy North Korea. They not only can control information, but they can make the truth and have people believe it. In other words, North Korean leadership does not have to worry about public opinion. They make public opinion. And finally, the North Koreans are very, very resilient. I think the Ukrainians found out that they are very highly indoctrinated, that they are motivated. In reality, they are brainwashed into thinking that they live in a perfect world. The only problem is everybody else. Although they target the United States and people like myself, puppets of the United States, anybody who believes in freedom is a threat. Anyone who believes in truth is a threat to North Korea, because North Korea is about the Kim family. So in order to protect the Kim family, the North Koreans have brainwashed their society. Lastly, the North Koreans have a caste system, which is called the Songbun. The Songbun system came into establishment in 1950 by Kim Il-sung, the leader of all leaders in North Korea. He categorized his people into basically three categories: the core, which is about 30%, the wavering, or the middle class, about 40%, and the hostiles, which is another 30%. A subdivision of this category is about 50 categories. This is a social political classification system that is based on loyalty to the Kim family. So imagine that. You are going to be categorized by how loyal the system thinks you are to the Kim family. It's a fantastic system for dictators, and it works. This is how they are able to control their society. With the Songbun system, it decides how much you're going to get educated, what job you're going to hold, and what kind of food you're going to be provided. So this is a very, very effective way of controlling the population. Now I will talk more about the military capability. North Korea actually lived better than the South Koreans until the early 70s. They had a very powerful military. Like I said, the entire country is like a military fort. Everything that they have, everything that they make is for their military. And so, although the North Koreans might not have don't live as good as the South Koreans, on the military side, up until the 80s, they had a far superior military, conventional. But they knew they had a problem. Thousands of their tanks, all of their aircraft, they were as good as the South Korean aircraft and South Korean tanks until the 80s. But from the 90s, all of their tanks and all of their aircraft were getting old. They needed to replace them. And they knew they could not do that. And by chance, China and especially the Soviet Union collapsed. And so the North Koreans lost their benefactors. But being North Korea, they were prepared. So their alternative to protecting not just their society, but the Kim regime, was to develop nuclear weapons. Before nuclear weapons, North Koreans had chemical and biological weapons. Even now, there is ample evidence that the North Koreans are developing and are capable of using nerve agents and other kinds of weapons of mass destruction. But from the very beginnings, the North Koreans wanted nuclear weapons. And it started in 1965 when they were able to secure a deal with the Soviet Union for a research reactor, the IRT 2000, the IRT 2000. So it was a research reactor that they said that they would be using for peace, but in the end, it turned out that it led to the weaponization of nuclear technology. In order to have a viable nuclear capability, you need two things. Number one is a nuclear device. Number two is a delivery system. So the North Koreans, they not only acquired a nuclear reactor in the 60s, but by the early 80s was importing Scud missiles from Egypt. And within 10 years, they were exporting North Korean versions of the Scud missiles to the Middle East. So they progressed in that field as well. And we're seeing the products now in Ukraine. So if you look at North Korean missile development, it's not just ballistic missiles. It's cruise missiles, it's big missiles, it's little missiles, it's medium missiles. Why would they have so many varieties of missiles? Could it be that it's because they want to sell them? Most likely it is. They have a lot of missiles, and no matter what you tell people about them, they work, and it's getting better. Going to conventional weapons. North Koreans enjoyed selling their conventional weapons to third countries until a robust sanctions regime was established. Maybe $3 billion of small arms to various parts of the world existed. AK rifles, RPGs, The North Koreans have a very good RPG. Anti-tank missile systems. The Cornet, the North Koreans have it. The SA-16s, SA-7s, they have it. It's affordable and it's pretty good. But they also have a very alarming EW, electronic warfare capability. Now, when the Soviets collapsed and their Eastern Bloc nations collapsed, North Korea was starving. We think maybe 1 to 1.5 million North Koreans starved to death. We all know how horrible starving to death is. But North Korea endured that. Their system is able to endure that kind of punishment. But at the same time, the North Korean regime invited Romanian, Ukrainian, Polish scientists to their country and helped them with these kind of capabilities, not to mention nuclear development. So the North Koreans have this kind of conventional capability. We often refer to the North Koreans as a cyber superpower. China, United States, Israel, and North Korea. These countries are considered cyber superpowers. If you hear or read a report that some country has just been robbed of cryptocurrency, $10 billion, $30 billion, it's probably North Korea. We Koreans are attacked by North Korea on a daily average. Some estimates say 1 million times a day. So that's how active they are in cyber capability. And I mentioned about their capabilities with ChemBio. And they're willing to sell these capabilities, as we are seeing in Ukraine and Russia. This relationship just highlights that the North Korean Kim regime problem is not just a Korean problem or a Northeast Asia problem. It's all of our problem. And that's the message that I really wanted to pass on to you today. It seems likely that within this year that the Ukraine-Russian conflict will come to some kind of conclusion. Even when that conclusion comes, I fear that there will be a robust relationship between the DPRK and Russia. I say this because of the personal relationship between Putin and Kim Jong-un. These men have both political goals. And did you see Putin waiting for Kim Jong-un? Usually Putin makes other people wait for him, but not in this case. Putin waited for Kim Jong-un for 30 minutes. Did you also see Putin opening Kim Jong-un's door for his vehicle? This is a special relationship. These are the things that catches my eye. Secondly, they have a treaty. A treaty is a piece of paper, yes, but again, Putin and Kim Jong-un have a real love affair. So I think because of this and national interests of both these countries, that despite a conclusion in Ukraine and Russia, that this relationship will morph into something else. There's a report that visas, excuse me, visas for North Korean students to study in Russia have increased by 12 times. These students might be doing something else than studying in Russia. Maybe they are there to help work and reconstruct some of the damage that has occurred during the war. Anyway, my biggest message to all of you is that North Korea is a world problem that should not be taken lightly, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chon.
Yeah, so 7 out of 10 Koreans want their own nuclear weapons. 9 out of 10 Korean experts think that we should have our own nuclear weapons. If you tell the Korean public that we will be faced with severe economic sanctions, that number goes down to maybe 4 or 5. But still, a considerable number of people feel that we need our own nuclear weapons. I personally advocate that we must, we must never exchange the Korea-US alliance for nuclear weapons. What that means is we must not go behind the back of the Americans. But I still feel that there is hope that we can convince the United States of the advantages of South Korea having its own nuclear capability, nuclear weapons capability. Now, before that, we Koreans have a serious problem. We have 26, 28 reactors, and all the spent fuel is just being stockpiled, and we don't have any more places to stockpile it in. So we need to have some sort of reprocessing agreement with the United States. And when we have that reprocessing agreement, it will increase our capability for the possibility of weapons use, which is something that we don't want to do yet, but it's where we are. North Korean nuclear doctrine. I think the only man in the world that has a red button on his desk is Kim Jong-un. So he has absolute power and authority on North Korean nuclear weapons. Having said that, there is a dead man's hand, which means if Kim Jong-un is taken out, if their command and control system is destroyed, local commanders would have the authority to launch a nuclear device. Whether this is true or not, this is a concern that I have. Although the North Koreans first said that they would not use nuclear weapons first, they said it was for self-defense, they changed their mind once they seemed to have enough nuclear weapons. They're now saying if there's an imminent threat that they would use nuclear weapons first. So we're not sure where it is, but any credible military planner would assume that they would use nuclear weapons, and this is bad news for everybody. For my Ukrainian friend, me personally, I am ashamed that as a free nation that we are not supporting you with military arms. If it was up to me, I would send you ammunition, tanks, everything that you would need to defend yourselves. But the reality is we cannot do that. The reality is that South Korea is by legally bound that we cannot sell weapons to a warfighting area, so you must understand. But we do send a lot of non-war material to Ukraine. And I believe once the fighting has concluded, South Korea will be a considerable contributor in the rebuilding of your nation. And hopefully that will ease my conscience anyway. Urban fighting. The smart rule is don't fight there, right? Don't go in there. But we should really do more because of the issue of the mega cities that now occupy a lot of the continent. So we need to figure that one out. The challenges that we've seen in recent fighting in urban warfare highlights what one must do. And again, for me, it just tells you don't go in there. Cyber capability is a real serious problem. The North Koreans have conducted many attacks into South Korea. That's why we're really good at defending against a cyber attack or or hacking. Our limitation is we cannot attack North Korea because we are a rule-based legal, we adhere to legal standards. The North Koreans do not. And because of this, they have a free hand. And you cannot imagine how they train their cyber warriors. It starts from age 10. You know that caste system that I talked to you about? It will never change. Only a child with super duper mathematical capability, that child has the opportunity to up the caste system. That's how they're treating their cyber capability. I just also want to mention that if China provokes Taiwan, and we do have a situation, we Koreans sound like we are reluctant to get involved. But I see no choice but to fight alongside the United States. And so I pray that that kind of situation will not happen. You know, it's very interesting what you said about war crimes. The biggest war crime, like in Ukraine right now, is that somebody started a war. Putin in this case. In 1950, Kim Il-sung, whatever his goal was, to unify the country. Maybe he thought he could do it in a month. I don't care. But he started the war. It led to 10% of the Korean people getting killed. Now, if the Americans bombed North Korea, hey, I'm a military guy. Fine. We should do it again. You know? The war is evil and bad. Nobody should start it. But the next thing is a long war. Any war that's more than 3 days is a bad war. So for me, bomb it, do whatever you want, except nuclear weapons. Let's do that. How does Kim? How are they successful? Like I said, you know, very systematic. You should study it if you want to become a dictator. Thank you.